Okay, welcome to part D of Drawing Isolines. All right, so you should be on the 203D field map, and this one has got this blue line running through it. That blue line is going to represent a river or stream. Now, the purpose of this map is to demonstrate that there's something special that happens when an isoline crosses a stream. So again, we're going to walk through this. So we're going to draw isolines, connecting points of equal value, both observed and inferred. Those lines cannot touch, they cannot cross, and because of that, they're going to create a general pattern. So they all follow the same general pattern. Isolines either have to go off the margin of the map or they have to connect into a loop. So we want to keep those in mind as we draw these. We're going to add a rule to this, and that is that when an isoline crosses a river, it makes a sharp bend. So in the past, we've been drawing these sort of smooth curves and avoiding creating sharp angles. This time, when we cross the river, we're going to try actually to create a sharp angle. All right, so I'm going to get started. My lowest value here is a 12. My highest value is a 20. My interval is a 2 again, so I'm going to be counting by 2s. So I'm going to start off with the 12. Now, in order to do this on a river, what I want to do is I want to take that idea of a number line, and I want to apply it to the values along the river. So I have an 11 here, and I have a 14 here. So in between it, there's going to be a 12 and a 13. So if I imagine spreading that 12 and 13 out evenly, there probably is going to be a 12 right there and a 13 right there. So this point right here is, I'm going to say that this point right here is a 12. So that's going to be my starting place. Now, when I draw isolines with rivers involved, I try to actually start at the river and work my way out. So starting here at this inferred 12 on the river, I'm going to look to see which way I can go. So I can't go up. There's a 13 and a 14, no 12 there. I can't go over here. There's a 14 and a 14, so there's no 12 in between those. I do have a 12 over here. And I can go between 11 and 14. So in this particular case, I'm going to take my line and I'm going to start off by going sideways out here, and I'm going to bring it out to the 12, hit my margin, and label it. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I still have this ending point, even though it's on the stream, it's still in the middle of the map. So I have to bring this line out to the margin. It went off over here. It's got to go off somewhere else as well. So I'm going to go to the left-hand side and see where I can go. So here's a 13 and here's a 12. There's no, here's a 13 and here's a 16. There's no 12 between those, so I can't go between those. 14, 16, can't go between those. 11, 14, I can go between these. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sharp angle at the river. I'm going to bring my line down to the margin, and I'm going to label it where it goes off. So again, this whole idea of the river is I want to be able to create sharp angles in the isoline where the isoline crosses the river. Okay, so I've done my 12. Now I've got to do a 14. So I have a 14 here. So let's see which way I can go. So if I go up, 17, 15, I can't go between those. I do have a 14 over here, and I can go between 13 and 15. So I'm going to bring my line over like this, and just kind of keeping in mind that I'm looking for a general pattern. There's a 14 here, so I'm going to continue it over, go through, and I'll label the 14 on the margin. All right, so with the 12 line, I just kind of went almost straight down. So I'm going to see if I can do that here. So there's a 13 and a 17, and I can indeed go straight down. So I'm actually going to kind of create a sharp angle, go a little bit towards the 13, because there's going to be a 13, a 14, a 15, and a 16 in there too. And then I'm going to go between the 13 and the 14, and I'm going to connect it to this 14 right here, and then bring it off the map. Okay, now I got to do the 16. So in between the 14 and the 17, there's going to be a 15 and a 16. So maybe about right there, that might be where the 16 is. So again, following the same pattern, I'm looking to go up into this corner. So let's see where I got. I've got a 15 and a 17. There's going to be a 16 right in the middle. So I'm going to go up like this. There's a 16 right here, so I'm going to connect that. And there's another 16 over here, so I'm going to connect that and just go off the margin. Okay, trying to go straight down now. There's a 16 down here, so I definitely got to get to that. I cannot go between 17 and 18, but I can go between 17 and 14. So I'm going to take my line, and I'm going to bring it around the 17 to the 16 and go off my margin at the bottom. Okay, so now I'm up to 18. So there's a 17, there's a 20. Going along the river, there's going to be an 18 and a 19. So try to space them out evenly. Maybe the 18's right here, and maybe the 19 is over here. All right, so I've got my 18 point. There's an 18 over here. I cannot go between 17 and 17, but I can go between 17 and 19. So I'm going to start off by going up and over, and then following the basic pattern to bring it over here. All right, going down, there's an 18 right there, so I'm just going to do this. Again, creating a sharp angle at the river. And then I'm going to look for where I can go here. So there's a 19, there's a 20. I can't go that way. There's a 20 and a 19 at the bottom. I can't go that way. I can go, whoops. I can go between 17 and 19. So I'm going to take my line and I'm going to bring it between those and then come down and label it where it goes off. Okay, I've got one left to do. That's the 20. There's a 20 right on the river here. So I'm going to create a kind of a little bit of a curve and bring it out just like the rest of the pattern. There's a 20 way down here, but I can't go between 18 or 19 or the river and 19, because remember, there's probably a 19 right here, so I can't really go between 19 and 19. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create that sharp angle. I'm going to go around the 19 here, and I'm also going to go around the 19 here, come down, hit the 20, and then go off the map. Okay, so now I've completed the ISO map with a river. Key idea again is the places where the ISO line crosses the river, we get a very sharp bend. Now this is actually really useful because if we're looking at a map with ISO lines on it, but we don't have all the measurements, we don't have all the different little circled numbers, we can look at the ISO line and we can tell exactly which way is uphill and downhill. But we have to remember some rules. So if we think about that this is a river and we look at the numbers, we can say, well, you know what, up here in the upper right-hand corner, this is the high area of the hill. And down here in the bottom right-hand corner, I'm sorry, this is the top left-hand corner. Down here in the bottom right-hand corner, this is the low end of the hill. So the water is going to flow from the high down the valley to the low. So going from high up on the hill to low down in the valley. Now, if we look at the ISO lines are actually kind of telling us where the hill is, and they kind of make these arrows. So the arrows that are the ISO lines make, they all point upstream, they all point uphill. So we could tell where the high is, where the upper part of the hill is, just by looking at the way that the ISO lines bend. Now there's another way to think about this, and we call it the Pac-Man lesson. You guys probably all know the Pac-Man from the video game. And Pac-Man is a ball. And if I go in here and I draw Pac-Man at each one of these ISO lines, you can see that the ISO lines make the chomping mouth of the Pac-Man. And Pac-Man is a ball, so he rolls downhill. So we can think about Pac-Man rolling downhill. So his open mouth will always point downhill. And the arrows that are made by the ISO lines, in this case, I've kind of reinforced it with a green arrow. The green arrows, the ISO lines actually point uphill. So we can use ISO lines to determine where higher and lower areas on a map are. Okay, so we are now done with the 4 examples where you should be drawing ISO lines. Use these videos, go back, try to draw these yourself. You do not need to share them with me unless you're having a really hard time and you want me to look at your work. Compare mine to yours. If you have any problems, try to figure out for yourself. But then if you're still having problems, let me know, share it with me, and I'll take a look at it. I'll take a look at your work. You need to share it with me through Cami so I can see your work. And once you're done with all these videos, you can move on to the worksheet 203. And that's it.